Hadestown is one of the most highly anticipated Broadway to West End transfers. So when I booked my tickets to go and see this show, I was really excited to see it. But I have to put my hand up and say that I didn't really research much about it. I didn't know what it is about. I didn't read the reviews. And basically I went there hoping to be just blown away by this amazing story and the amazing music. And then I kind of, during the whole first act, was standing there and wondering, why is this so acclaimed? Like, how come this musical got like 8 Tony Awards, and how come so many people praise it? Am I just not getting something? This wasn't love at first sight. But after listening to the soundtrack and having some time to digest what I've seen, I have some thoughts to share with you, and that's what this video is about. My name is Christina and I love going to theater, and this year I'm going to try and see 52 shows, which means 1 show a week. So if you would like to follow my journey, then make sure to subscribe and like this video. Firstly, I do think that Hadestown is one of those musicals that requires some preparation. I'm not saying that you are not able to gauge what the story is about if you're not familiar with it, but I do think that there's more appreciation that you start having for this musical once you know a little bit about it. So the story of Hadestown follows a well-known Greek myth about Orpheus and Eurydice. So if you know a thing or two about Greek mythology and you understand some of the myths that are referenced, I think that you will have a richer experience. However, I went into this show not knowing much about the plot and much about these myths. So it took me a little bit to actually try and understand who is who and what they're trying to do. And maybe my appreciation for the show started to grow after I left the theater and started reading up these myths. That is something that I would probably recommend you do. Like, you don't need to go into the spoilers in terms of the show and read the reviews, but maybe just like familiarize yourself with Orpheus and Eurydice, and maybe just like broader Greek mythology, who's Hades, who's Hermes, Fates, etc. Definitely the best thing about this musical is the music, and I cannot emphasize this enough. I haven't been blown away by a musical soundtrack since Hamilton, so I'm not exaggerating when I say I started listening to it as soon as I got home, because I really wanted to kind of immerse myself into those tunes again, and ever since it's been on repeat. And the reason why these tunes are like so catchy is because they're so different from regular musical theater. They have jazz, they have folk, they have just amazing like instrumental parts at the same time as like amazing vocal parts, and all of that is done to like really tell a story. And there are quite a lot of numbers that are about like, I feel 5 to 8 minutes long, which is really good because it really takes you on a journey, and I think this is where the show really excels. Anais Mitchell is the writer of this show, and it is really interesting when you read a little bit about how Hadestown has come about, because it's not that she sat down and wanted to write a musical. She first just wrote a few songs about a myth that she was inspired by, and then that turned into a concert album, and then from there it was adapted for stage, and then from there it was adapted for Broadway, and there's like a whole journey that this musical has been on, but I think the essence still stays the same. And after knowing that, I'm not gonna lie, my appreciation for this show has grown. And I feel that maybe if I've known this before I went to see the show, I would have felt like differently about it, because I just understand of how much soul has been put into it. But on the other hand, it's also good to just like take something at the face value and purely assess it if you like it or not in the moment. Speaking of music, I think there's something that you should know is that this is an unusual musical also in the sense that there is no spoken dialogue. And if you are a musical theater fan, this will be something that you will really enjoy, because the storytelling within a song is fascinating. But if you don't like musicals and you prefer to see plays, then I do think that you might find it hard to switch off from it, because there's literally no space to switch off. It's literally one song ends, the other one starts. And the beauty of it is that it is very natural when you're witnessing everything that's happening on the stage. Musicians are on the stage and there's a bit of movement. I think you kind of get immersed into it and you kind of forget that that is just like song after song after song, and they really nicely also complement each other. So I don't personally think that it was something that I kind of missed a breather, but it is definitely a point of consideration if you're thinking of, are you gonna go and see this show or not? Because if you don't like musicals, then it's gonna be a really hard one for you to appreciate. When I think about Hadestown, there's one word that comes to my mind, and that is simplicity. And not necessarily simplicity in a sense that it is not a complex thing to watch or understand, or there isn't enough of like complex music or metaphors and things like that. I think just from the way that it's set up, because the set is kind of simple without spoiling it too much. There isn't a lot that's happening. There are like a couple of key features on the set, but there aren't many changes, and also they are leaving quite a lot of that world that you can imagine yourself rather than kind of making it all lay down for you. And when I read the program, actually there was a conscious choice, because in some earlier stages of the show they actually did have the rail tracks and they had all these different things on the set, and then they just realized that it's not giving. When I read that, it made sense, but I think also like initially I was thinking, why isn't this kind of mythical world brought to life with a lot more of things that happen on the stage? And as the show was unfolding, I started to appreciate it more. And I think what I appreciated a lot is the musicians being on stage, because honestly, as I said, the music is amazing. And when you see these musicians and actors interacting on stage in such a organic way, it just gives you the feel like that you're witnessing creation of something that is a little bit kind of rough at the edges, but it's not. It's very polished and it's right the way that it should be, but there's just like something about it that feels almost like a live gig rather than a musical. There was something during this performance that happened that I wasn't aware of, and that is that we didn't see the main leads, but we saw understudy for Eurydice and the lead for Orpheus. And while she was really great, I do think that if you're going to see a West End show mid of the week, in a way, like, you are expecting to see the lead cast unless you are notified about it. So I do think that there was something a little bit kind of missing in between Orpheus and Eurydice during some of the scenes. I just kind of like didn't really trust their chemistry, and maybe this was really a last minute cast change, and I totally appreciate that like it is a really stressful thing to do on a sold out night, but I do want to go and see the show again with the lead cast or with the lead female. On the other hand, I was really blown away by Zachary James, who plays Hades. He was phenomenal. He also has like such a deep voice. I really loved his numbers, and I think he really played character so well. Gloria Onitiri was Persephone, and she was also fantastic. Just the energy that she brought on stage, like, it really captivates you from the moment that she is on the stage, and she has such an interesting role as well. So I think that those are the two highlights. As you can tell, I've been on a journey with this show since I've seen it. I think that on the night I would kind of give it 3 to 4 stars, but now when I've kind of listened to the soundtrack more, when I'm familiar more with the story, when I read the program that has a lot of details about how the show has come about, I think I have so much more appreciation for it, and that makes me think of this show as more like a 4 to 5 star one. So I am gearing myself to go and see it again, hopefully with the lead cast. And overall, I do think it's an interesting story to go and see, but this is really for musical theater lovers. I don't think that this is suited for people who prefer plays or who just aren't bought into the story of this musical. One more thing to note is to pay attention which seats you're picking. I don't know if this is the case with all of the seats, but I was in Grand Circle, row B, and the seats are pretty low. I haven't experienced this in the theater until now, but basically we were second row, but we couldn't, if you lean back, you couldn't really see the stage fully. And these were marked as restricted seats. I paid my seat £60, so I did kind of expect like a really good view. And while it was Grand Circle, I could lean a little bit to see the whole stage. It wasn't the most pleasant seating that I've experienced, and for the price tag of £60, I would probably expect a little bit more. So definitely look for the reviews of the seats before you book, because getting a pricier seat doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna be an amazing view. But if you're looking for ways in which you can find cheap tickets, then maybe check out this video where I'm talking about £25 tickets on the West End.